So the reality is we can afford as a country to have more people, but what's even more important, we require population growth to be able to get us to where we deserve to be.
Are the Liberals going to be creating another housing crisis? That's what we're talking about here today. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got Mark Carney, who has appointed his protege, his friend, Mark Wiseman, as the U.S. ambassador for Canada. And in that, Mark Carney is bringing in the guy who co-founded the Century Initiative, an initiative to get Canada's population to 100 million people by 2100. And look how this has worked out for Canada. It's been an absolute disaster. Today, we're going to talk everything Mark Wiseman, the housing situation, what the results of his plan were, and what this means going forward for Canada here. Let's jump into this. We're going to start this episode here, the home price to income ratio in OECD countries. And what do we see? Canada is number 2, as in second worst. You see Canada 135 here, America's 130. The average is 116. As the graph shows, more affordable is blue and less affordable is red. So Romania, Bulgaria, Finland, France, Italy are more affordable. And the only country that is worse than us is Portugal, 158. This is essentially an index. It's not a percentage here, but you can see the difference. A country right in the middle would be Sweden at 98, basically. So we're almost near the far side here in home price to income ratio. And with that, we've got Gregor Robertson, our housing minister, posting this one here. New supportive housing project at former LTC. Home almost ready for move-in. What is this? It's a former nursing home in London, Ontario that's been transformed to serve a new purpose in the community. Oh yeah, Canadians won't have an opportunity to buy this. They're going to allow newcomers to have access to this with Canadian money to pay for it. We know how this goes. We also got this one here. Abbotsford to secure 234 rental homes built thanks to federal and provincial funding. 234. If we take that number and then compare it to this, immigrationstatistics.ca, and just looking at the final number here, this is all of the international mobility program down the bottom left, the study permits, which is green, and temporary foreign workers is blue. Add all these together, it's 3.1 million people. Let's just say half these people go home every year, 1.5 million. Add in the asylum claimants for the year. Let's just say roughly right around here. We won't go maxed out at 170,000, say 140,000 asylum claimants. And we've got immigration here at 450,000 per year. Mark Carney, I believe, brought this just underneath 400,000. So just say 400K. So adding all of those up, that's just over 2,040,000 people. And if you divide that by 365 days per year, that's 5,589 people per day that's coming into Canada and is staying. And that's based on all these temporary workers here, half of them staying and half of them going home. As in 5,500 people are coming into Canada every single day, and they're bragging about 234 units. No wonder we have a housing problem. With that said, Mark Carney has appointed Mark Wiseman, the co-creator of the Century Initiative, plan to get to 100 million citizens in Canada by 2100 as his U.S. ambassador.
The Prime Minister named a new U.S. ambassador today. Mark Wiseman, a business executive and close ally of Mark Carney, will replace Kirsten Hillman in February. The appointment comes at a critical time for Canada-U.S. relations, bruised by Trump's tariffs and threats of annexation. Wiseman will be responsible for renegotiating a trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico.
He is a global investment banker, pension fund manager, and friend of Prime Minister Mark Carney. Now, Mark Wiseman will be adding Canada's ambassador to the U.S. to his resume.
There is going to be an enormous amount of hurdles and landmines that the ambassador is going to have to walk through.
He steps into what is widely viewed as Canada's top foreign post without any diplomatic experience, but the Prime Minister's office points to his extensive experience at American financial institutions and knowledge of capital markets on both sides of the border.
So he brings that.
Of course he doesn't have any experience because they don't care. They're running a grift here to get rich. They're not trying to make Canada thrive. They're not trying to build our country up. That's why Carney's bringing in all these Goldman Sachs pension bankers. All these guys know how the system works here. They're all working on it together.
Outside of politics, real world experience that I think will be of benefit to the country for sure.
In a social media post announcing the appointment, Prime Minister says, as a core member of our negotiating team, I know he will advance the interests of Canadian workers, businesses, and institutions.
Carney is betting that Wiseman's finance credentials will command the attention and the respect of Trump.
A bet that couldn't come with higher stakes for the trade relationship between the two countries.
And there's a lot of anxiety over sectoral tariffs and then the Kuzma review. So really important here in this case that the Prime Minister has recruited someone who's a globally recognized deal maker.
In 2020,
the Prime Minister has recruited one of his good friends who's likely invested in all the same companies he's invested in. Is this guy invested in Brookfield? Probably. Do we get to see his list of assets? Nope. No, we don't.
the current CUSMA deal helps shield Canada from the worst impacts of tariffs. But with its review set to begin in the new year, there are no guarantees.
The president can and quite possibly will walk away from this agreement. And if he does, then I think all bets are off.
Sources tell CTV News Wiseman won't be alone at the negotiating table. The Prime Minister, along with Dominic LeBlanc, the minister in charge of Canada-US relations, will also play critical roles.
There it is. So Dominic LeBlanc will be holding his hand while he goes there to negotiate with Trump.
Carney's office says Wiseman will take on the post in mid-February. He'll be tasked with leading negotiations on the review of the CUSMA free trade agreement with Mexico and the U.S.
He's got an important role here. We got the timeline from this report here. In February, he's coming in. He's going to be taking over CUSMA negotiations. The timing of this is very interesting.
Colton, not a surprise for anybody who's been anticipating this announcement.
No, this is a name that was rumored for quite some time. Essentially, since Kirsten Hillman announced that she was going to be leaving the position, this has been the name that's been floating around Ottawa. To your point about them having a pre-existing relationship, sources telling us that is something that also influenced this decision. The importance of having an ally that the Prime Minister feels he can trust in such a significant diplomatic position is a big reason for why you're seeing Mark Wiseman as the name that's been put forward. This is largely...
They just admitted it. What I keep saying here on the channel, Mark Carney bringing in his A-team, people he can trust. He doesn't want all these leftover Trudeau liberals. He doesn't trust any of these people. He wants his greedy bankers around him. That's why he's bringing it in. They even said it here on CTV.
Considered the most important diplomatic position in the country. And so that financial background, that economic background, and that personal background all coming into play here. Of course, it wasn't just at BlackRock, for example, where he made a name for himself. He was also leading the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board and the Alberta Investment Board. And so there is a history here, both in private and public dollars.
Yeah, he definitely made a name for himself at BlackRock. BlackRock executive Mark Wiseman ousted over affair with employee. Investing giant BlackRock has terminated one of its top executives after it was revealed that he had been having a consensual affair with an employee. Senior Managing Director Mark Wiseman, who had also been seen as a potential successor to Larry Fink, the founder of the $6.8 trillion fund, was fired after the firm ruled the affair violated its policies. Making the drama even messier is the fact that Wiseman's wife, Marcia Moffat, is the head of BlackRock's Canadian division. You can't make this crap up. So are we surprised that we're seeing stuff like this? 54% of Canadians now believe the system is rigged to benefit Canadian elite at their expense. So Mark Wiseman co-founded the Century Initiative with Dominic Barton, the same Dominic Barton here, who is the Canadian ambassador to the People's Republic of China, the same Century Initiative that wants to grow Canada's population to 100 million by 2100. And what's the result of that? Stuff like this. Here we have a newcomer truck driver, probably using a fake license that he didn't even obtain, completely flattens this car. You can see here he's texting on his phone. He's not paying attention. He's about to slam into these cars here. He looks up last second. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. This is what they've brought into our country. This is what happens when you try to bring in 100 million by 2100 without a real plan to vet the people. So what did happen here is the girl did survive. I think she's in her 20s. She did survive in this tiny little spot here in this car that's completely crumpled. It's unbelievable. I mean, look at the impact here. It's just outrageous. These are the kind of people the liberals have brought in. We're seeing the same thing all across Europe. Migrants brought in, not vetted, dangerous people. I mean, here we're in Lyon, France, where a group of migrants attack a merry-go-round with children on it. Like, this is what they're bringing into our country. Dangerous people from the other side of the planet. These very same people were given refuge in a housing project in Marseille, France. And what do? They throw in garbage outside the window. They don't put it in a garbage can and put it in the garbage. They just chuck it out the window. This is what we're bringing into our country. Disgusting.
Regarde-moi tout ça.
Do we really need 100 million by 2100? I don't think so. Not if it's going to bring this. Now, the people of France are pushing back. We've got the bikers now joining. The farmers, the paramedics, they're all pushing back against Emmanuel Macron. Meanwhile, back in Canada, what do we have? A man walking down Winnipeg Street in Regina wearing sandals in the snow with what appears to be a Taliban flag. We see here, it says Taliban, Saudi Arabia, and his does look like that one. So it does look like a Taliban flag. Yeah, we don't need this in our country. Like, seriously, time to go. So it's no wonder you're seeing stuff like this, record-breaking numbers of Alberta seeing the biggest population boom ever recorded, and the data goes back to 1961. Well, I mean, people are moving from all over Canada to Alberta because they're sick of the nonsense. They're looking for jobs, prosperity, cheaper homes, an end to the nonsense. If Alberta separates, people want to be a part of it. With all that said, talking about housing prices here, we've got the Liberals coming out with this one. Canada weighs opening its housing market to more foreign capital. Like, we need that right now. More foreign buyers to jack up the housing prices. As Stephen puts it here, people in Canada can't afford homes and prices can't fall because debt was securitized with widespread fraud. So taxpayers will subsidize foreign speculation. It's like they hired the mayor of Vancouver to run housing. Oh, wait. Yeah, they did. Just imagine that. Gregor Robertson, the last guy that should be running the housing division of Canada right now. So this article goes on to talk about how, well, exactly this. Carney's government here is considering changes on its ban on foreign home buyers starting in 2027. Its housing minister said, as the government looks for ways to increase the supply of affordable places to live. Yeah, so bringing in foreign buyers and jacking up the prices, that's somehow going to help. Gregor Robertson said the government will maintain a previous administration's decision to extend the prohibition on foreign buyers through 2026, but over the next year, we'll review what's worked in similar countries, particularly Australia, figure out the best role for offshore capital to play in the housing market. How about none? How about we ban corporations from buying houses? Goes on to say here, Canada banned most foreign investors from buying non-recreational homes starting in 2023 after prices surged amid rock-bottom interest rates. It later tweaked the law to allow them to invest in vacant land development. Still, developers have criticized the ban for shutting out capital to fund new housing. Once again, why do we need foreign buyers buying up houses when Canadians need houses? You can see housing starts here over the past 3 years, and I mean, it bounces around 200,000 up to 275,000 per year. So once again, going back to the beginning here, these numbers where we're having 3.1 million temporary people coming in, 400,000 immigrants, another 150,000 asylum seekers, and even with half of these temporary ones going home, we're left with 5,500 people per day coming to Canada. We're not building nearly enough houses. At our current rate of 250,000 homes per year being built, that's only 685 houses being built every single day. And we need 5,500, almost 10 times the amount of houses we need. That's why we have to close the border. We have to deport a bunch of people and nip this in the butt. Unfortunately, Mark Carney just brought in Mark Wiseman, the Century Initiative guy, so I don't think this is going to get better anytime soon.
I think the important thing to understand is it's actually not about immigration. It's about population growth. So the reality is that much of Canada's economic growth, particularly since the Second World War, has come from the fact that we've gotten larger as a country. We've gotten larger as a result of being larger. We've been able to be more efficient. We've been able to utilize economies of scale. And we have to continue to grow our population if we want to continue to succeed as a country. We're a big country.
No, we don't have to do that. And we already know this because this interview is from, I believe, 6 years ago. You can see over here, 6 years ago. We've already seen the result of this guy's plan, and it has destroyed Canada. And Mark Carney's like, let's bring this guy in. He seems like a good guy to help just put nail in the coffin in this country.
And the reality is we're a tiny market in spite of the fact that we're a big country. So the reality is, if you look at Canada's demographics today, we will grow on current trend to about 50 million people from 37 million today by about 2050. And then we stop growing. And this is a trend that we have to get on top of now. If we stop growing, we will have a smaller economy. If we stop growing, we'll be less important in the world as the rest of the world grows around us. As we stop growing, we will have less people to support important social programs like healthcare and education. So the reality is we can afford as a country to have more people, but what's even more important, we require population growth to be able to get us to where we deserve to be as a nation and where our children and their children deserve to be as a nation. So the goal of
everything this guy said is wrong. Our children don't deserve to live in a country that has no future for them. They might as well look at another country, try to get to America or somewhere else where there will be prosperity, there'll be a life for them that they could afford. They can afford to buy a house, because that's not here. This guy knows it. If I were a betting man, he's going to be invested in much of the same stuff as Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau, all these guys that are benefiting from this huge boom of population that is destroying Canadian lives. It's interesting watching this now 6 years later to see he is so dead wrong. It's unbelievable. This is done nothing but hurt our economy. We're dishing out all this money in refugee payments, in housing, food bank costs. Our healthcare is bursting at the seams. Same thing with our schools. And it is absolutely slaughtering the job markets for young Canadians and for all Canadians. This has done nothing to help Canada.
100 million people by 2100 is driven by that underlying demographic and economic need. How we get there is in part through immigration. And the reason it has to be through immigration is because our birth rate also continues to fall. So today our birth rate at about just over 1.5, that's 1.5 children per woman in this country, if you do the math, is obviously insufficient to even keep population at current levels. So we'll actually depopulate if we don't bring more people in.
And I mean, obviously the goal walks back from that, to that lofty goal of 2,100 to 500,000 within sort of 5 years' time. If you think about where we are today, there are people, and we just had an election campaign and some were out arguing this, that we're already hitting kind of maximum levels of absorption, that we're not ready for even the 350,000 that we accept now. You're proposing, the initiative proposes a bunch of changes to help us get there. How much do those foster growth, and how much are they pretty big ticket items for Canada to swallow?
So you'll notice that 6 years ago, this was just before the huge boom. This guy was whispering in Justin Trudeau's ear, Mark Carney's ear. They went forward with this program, and we know the result of it. And just going back to the statistics here we have the immigration slightly cut off. You can see 450,000. Mark Wiseman would have been whispering in Trudeau's ear over here back in 2019. And what did? They jacked it up. Just as he said, they were around 350,000 back then. They tried to push it up to 500,000. They got up to, I don't know, about 475 or something around there. They quite literally implemented his exact plan here. And sure, it's great for big companies that want to pay half the wages that they're paying workers. This has been absolutely the worst experiment for Canada. Once again, 5,500 people every day coming into Canada. We can't build houses fast enough. There's no technology to build that many homes that fast.
Well, the first thing I would say is that we are known globally. And I go around the world as part of what I do day in and day out and meet people in other countries. And Canada is a beacon for the world in terms of how we bring people into this country, how we integrate them. And by the way, the statistics bear that out. So if you look at unemployment rates among immigrants 5 years out, in fact, those rates are better than they are for people that were born and raised in this country. If you look at educational attainment of the children of immigrants, if you look at the taxes and the support that immigrants provide to our social programs, not taking from them what they provide to it.
No, they're not providing to it. So many of them are coming here and just sucking money out of the system and providing no GDP growth to our country. That's why we've had virtually none in the last 10 years. Our GDP growth is flat. Meanwhile, America continues to go upwards. This guy is dead wrong. How could anyone bring this guy in when this is what he predicted 6 years ago? He is so wrong on everything. But once again, this is a grift. They knew this was going to happen. They don't care. It's all about making money.
They are a net contributor.
Although none of that's ever been tested at scale, right? That's always been.
Well, we are, but Amanda, we are testing this at scale at close to 1% of our population today. So we're doing well. Now,
yeah, we're doing so well, aren't we? So they did test it at scale, and now we know the result. It's been miserable. Now, to get us back on track, we will need technology to build houses faster. And Mark Carney knows this. That's why Brookfield bought Modular Group. If I were a betting man, is going to be shuttling over a nice big juicy government contract that's full of taxpayer money to Brookfield to build more modular homes. But one of the technologies we are seeing that will speed up home building dramatically is these robotic AI home building machines, essentially build chunks of houses without any workers. So even with technology like that, it's not going to save us. We have to close the borders for a good 5 to 10 years to even have a chance to have a normal life in our country 5 or 10 years from now.
It doesn't mean we don't have to do more. We have to ensure that we have the right type of infrastructure in our cities to support bigger cities. We have to think ahead. We have to think long term. It would be great if we had built in this city, in Toronto, the Eglinton subway before we built the street on top of it. We should have been thinking ahead. So we have to think ahead in terms of transit. We have to think ahead in terms of housing. And that's one of the...
This guy is so wild talking about thinking ahead when his plan here has done more damage to Canada than probably anything in history, except maybe Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney's catching up quick here.
The things that we propose. We have to think ahead in terms of education. We have to think ahead, very, very importantly, about early childhood support. We need to ensure that we have a fully deployed workforce, including making sure that women are fully deployed into the Canadian workforce. And in order to do that, we need a national child care strategy, in our view. So all of those things.
It's interesting. Was Justin Trudeau in control, or was he pulling the strings there the whole time?
Things have to come together along with immigration. But we are going to let less people into this country this year than we did on the eve of the First World War, when our population was less than 1/5 of what it is today. So Canada has an amazing history and an amazing track record of integrating people into our society. And actually, all we have to do if we start acting today is increase by about 20 to 30% from what we are doing today. And then we get what's known in investing is the compounding effect. Because if we bring in more—
Oh, thank goodness, get the compounding effect. We can increase the destruction rate of Canada. Mark Carney really does surround himself with the worst of the worst people he can find.
More younger immigrants today as part of the process of getting to 100 million. Those immigrants will have children. Those children will have children.
Are you sure about that? Or are they going to be terrorizing merry-go-rounds? Careful who you vote in, Liberals.
Etc. The longer we wait, the bigger the problem becomes.
This guy is just unbelievable. What's interesting about him is he's not in favor of supply management or the dairy cartel, and he's in the position to negotiate with Donald Trump, who also doesn't want the supply management and dairy cartel in Canada. So we're going to see what happens with that. One thing's for certain is we need to lock down the borders. We need to have proper vetting. Maybe eventually here in Canada, if we finally get a conservative government, we won't be seeing stuff like this. Palestinian protesters in Toronto say they're planning on disrupting New Year's Eve celebrations downtown because there can be no celebration until liberation. These fear-mongering crazies took over a shopping mall where they're hanging banners multiple stories off of the second floor here with this made in Canada, Israeli. You see it. Wake up, Canada. This is intimidation, not a protest, and it's time to put a stop to it.